Welcome, everybody, to the Fanmouth Daily Fantasy Baseball Breakdown for Saturday, May the 24th. I'm Joe Marsh, joined today by Dave Del Grande and Jeff Collins. How you gentlemen doing today?
What's up?
Good, thanks.
All right, if you tuned in yesterday, you got some great information. We had a few good nights last night. We're looking to keep that momentum going into the weekend. We're covering just the 7 o'clock Eastern time start games and later, so small slate of games. So we may have a lot of the same information to give you, a lot of the same players, but that should just make your job easier. Starting with pitcher, I think Dave's got a good beat on pitcher today. Dave, why don't you kick us off on the mound?
I do. Well, one of the things that I talk about a lot regarding pitchers is I don't like it when two good pitchers are facing each other. To me, that negates each other. I like to be able to attempt anyway to identify who's going to win the game and get those extra pitching points from the winner. So I think there are two matchups tonight with arguably the four best pitchers going tonight, or four of the five anyway, with Garcia and Cingrani facing each other, and certainly Strasburg and Cole facing each other. To me, I throw those four pitchers out. I don't want any part of any of them. I can't pick the winner in either one of those games. And so, to me, the pitcher that stands out tonight is Vogelsong. Vogelsong, if you look at his record and his ERA, you'd say, oh, man, hasn't been having a very good season. He's actually been very, very good in the month of May. He's red hot. He's a low-price guy. Facing Twins at home tonight. Twins are a decent hitting team, but the Giants are clearly the better team in this matchup. The Twins don't have a strong pitcher going. I think at his price, I think he's the standout pitcher tonight.
Okay. I agree with Dave on who the strongest pitchers are. I, however, am picking them and starting them. I do like Garrett Cole. The only one I left off is Strasburg just because of the price. I don't think it's necessary to spend that much on him today, just because he hasn't been striking out enough guys to justify that price. I'd rather go with Garrett Cole, 8.14 strikeouts per 9, and he's facing Washington, who strikes out a lot. They're hitting 233 against right-handers, and Cole's been really good this year, especially at home. He's 3.21 ERA, 2.45 batting average against at home. And then another guy that Dave mentioned is Cingrani, who's been really good at home. 2.60 ERA, only giving up a 2.10 batting average at home. Another solid Ks per 9, 8.79. Facing the Cardinals, who are an average offense, they're not hitting too well lately. I think he's more, there's some upside and there's a bit of a limited risk and not costing you a ton of money. So I think if you can combine those guys, you still leave money for offense when there's not a ton of expensive offensive players today. I think you can build your lineup just fine with those two. Jeff, what are you thinking?
I think you guys made some interesting points that brings up a lot of strategy into this. I can see Dave not wanting to go, with two really good opposing pitchers against each other, not wanting to try to choose between them, but with such a short slate, it's impossible not to, in my opinion. I see what he's saying about Vogelsong, maybe. I don't really believe in Vogelsong. I don't see how he gets people out, honestly. He's had one good year in his career where it kind of worked for him. I think that was 2012, but besides that, kind of struggled, especially at the beginning of this year. He has had a really good May, though, so I could see it happening. I could see that going either way. I would rather roll the dice on one of the more expensive pitchers who can put together a good game even without the win. So I'm on Garrett Cole and Cingrani today, like you are, Joe. And I think the one of the reasons being is as far as like you look at the other top options like Strasburg against Cole. Why are you taking Strasburg against Cole? Vegas has him as literally dead even. They don't have a favorite in that game, and I see the upside is just as high for both of them. Strasburg, I was under the impression earlier in the year that he's a guy that could go, complete game, 9 innings, rack up 14 strikeouts, but they pretty much don't let him go past 7. So I don't like that about him. I mentioned yesterday liking guys that go deep into games. So that would be one reason I avoid him. You look at James Shields, and his schedule this year has been cake. Like, he hasn't really faced anyone very good. He's faced Detroit twice, but he's given up 11 runs in 2 games to them. So, James Shields is going to be a guy actually I'm looking to attack, whereas I assume most people are going to want to avoid some Angels tonight, but I don't think James Shields is a good option. So you look at those really high price options, the Strasburgs and the James Shields, and I think you can safely avoid them, but I'm comfortable going to that next level with Sangrani and Cole and really counting on those strikeouts to rack up.
Yeah, I mean, I'll say this, and I agree with you guys about these high-priced pitchers tonight, is that, there's such a limited slate, and if you look at the hitters tonight, to me, the hitters that have the best matchups are on teams like Houston and the Cubs, very low-priced guys. So it's like, man, I would love tonight to play tonight's the night to have Hernandez and Wilson going. To pay the big price on pitchers because there's a lot of good bargains on hitters. But, I'm just a little uncomfortable doing that. You guys aren't. As Joe said yesterday, Jeff is the pitching guru.
So, yeah, right. Yesterday, look what happened.
I must reconsider.
No way. I got destroyed on pitching yesterday. I actually had some decent hitters. But I think you actually make some good points there again, Dave, is that you've got all these good matchups. Even with Chicago, looks like a good matchup, right? But it's in San Diego, and all those guys are so cheap that if you pick these games with the good matchups, you've got 40,000 left over. You know what I mean? It's like you've got to take a chance against some of these good pitchers. Number one, so I'm really curious to see how everyone's roster selections moving forward throughout the positions shake out, because I'm kind of taking a little bit different approach than I usually would, but these short slates really force you to do that.
Yeah, it's definitely a weird day for fantasy. With the smaller slate, like you said. One thing you said is, picking if you have to choose between Strasburg and Cole. Now, ordinarily, Strasburg is an easy answer because of the strikeouts, but he's only struck out 21 hitters through his last 4 starts. So if you're thinking, he's going to pitch 7 innings, maybe get you 6 or 7 strikeouts and a no decision, that's not worth your $19,000 today. You can get that from somebody else. So that's the big thing is the price for me on Strasburg. I can't justify that really high price tag when I think I can get similar points out of Cole at about $4,000 less today.
Yeah, and Cole has 21 strikeouts through his last 3 games. I mean, it's like you said, it's the same thing. So you've got to save the 3,000 or 4,000 and go with Cole, in my opinion.
Yeah. All right, a lot of good stuff there at pitcher. Jeff, tell us what you think at catcher today.
Well, catcher's kind of a mess too, because you've got Buster Posey, who's been dealing with a back injury, right? He's back from that, but he's 1 for his last 11. He's 1 for his last 16, 2 for his last 24. The further you go back up to 24 at bats, it just gets uglier and uglier. So I don't believe in Buster Posey, and I kind of wanted to spend up at catcher because, like we've talked about, you've got to be spending at some of these positions because there's so much value out there. So then I look at Yadier Molina, and he's going against Sangrani, who I'm recommending as a pitcher. So that's always a battle. It's like, well, do I want my hitter going against one of the pitchers that I'm selecting and recommending? And usually I'd say no, but again, short slate. So you might have to take a player or two against a pitcher that you're selecting, which is really weird. But I don't think it's going to be Yadier for 8,300. And then Salvador Perez, the other guy above 8,000, is dealing with a hurt hand. So I didn't want him. I landed on Devin Mesoraco, 8,200, an expensive guy, a guy going against Jaime Garcia. Who hasn't had a whole lot of starts this year. I believe he's had 1 start, right? This is his second one. So he pitched against the Braves and didn't do that great. Gave up a couple home runs, 4 runs. I think Mesoraco with his power is a good way to go pay up and get him.
Yeah, I was with you on Posey initially when I thought Nolasco was starting, but the change to the starting pitcher will be Deduno starting today. So I don't like Posey as much.
Well, I don't like Posey either.
Yeah, I like him a bit, but I would rather save money at catcher. Go with Wellington Castillo. I know you don't like to necessarily target guys in Petco, but the Padres are starting a minor leaguer they just called up, Billy Buckner. First off, I don't like his name. Second of all, I've checked his stats. He doesn't get lefties or righties out, so I think it may be smart to actually get a few Cubs in your offensive lineup today. So I like Castillo.
let me jump in there again real quick. Like I said, all the rules that you usually look at, like those go out the window. So everyone at Petco's in play. You know,
Yeah.
hitters against your pitchers are in play. I think it just everyone is in play today. You know,
Yeah,
forget
that's
about the usual rules.
one of the things. When there's 6 games, you can't always find, that A-plus matchup that you're looking for. You've got to come down with your standards a little bit and say, well, this guy's, this is a pretty good matchup, because you're not going to find the awesome matchups that you will when you have a 15-game slate. So Jeff's exactly right on that. Dave, what are you thinking behind the plate?
Well, you would think this would be impossible, that you guys are 12 guys, 12 starting catchers tonight. You guys have mentioned 5, and you haven't hit either one of the 2 guys that I like.
Oh, wow. That's bad news for you.
Yes, it is. Well, first off, let me say that because I'm saving money at pitcher, I am going to give a serious look to the highest price guy at every position today, which means I'm going to give a strong look at Posey. I think Jeff's right. If you look at the numbers, Posey hasn't hit well lately, but I thought he actually hit the ball well last night and didn't have anything to show for it. But if you look at the splits tonight, there are 2 things that stand out. Number one is Mauer pitching for Seattle. He's got a 341 against left-handed hitters. So I'm going to look at Houston's right-handers against him. Well, Jason Castro bats in the middle of Houston's lineup. I think that's a really good matchup tonight. Then there's Oberholzer's pitching tonight for Houston against Seattle. 333 average against right-handed hitters with 5 home runs. So I'm going to be looking at Seattle's right-handed hitters. Now, Seattle doesn't have a whole lot of them, but one of them is Zunino. So there's 2 catchers that I think both stand out on the splits tonight. They're both, obviously significantly cheaper than Posey. And so on a normal night, I would, toss a coin between those 2, but I'm still going to have to give Posey a lot of consideration tonight.
All right. Moving over to first base. Dave, what do you think at first base?
Well, first base, I've got my home run pick of the night, and that's Rizzo of the Cubs. You mentioned that the Padres are pitching a minor league pitcher tonight. Rizzo is 4 home runs against right-handed pitching this year. This guy Buckner, I'm not confident. He could be the worst pitcher going tonight, although I think Mauer's going to give him a run for his money in that regard. I'm looking to play some Cubs tonight, even as Jeff mentioned, this is not an ideal hitter's park in San Diego, but I do like the matchup. I also, as I mentioned before, I'm going to give a strong look to a high-price guys. I like Pujols, not an ideal matchup, but again, like Posey, a good hitter that I'll have to consider using at utility tonight in order to spend some money and not have 40,000 left over at the end. So Rizzo's my top guy tonight, but I would consider Pujols a strong second.
Jeff, what do you think?
Pujols is strong first for me. I talked about James Shields and not being that impressed because he has actually had a pretty soft schedule, and the times he did face a good hitting team in Detroit, he actually did not do very well. So I don't mind going with Crone or Pujols here. I might actually even go with both. We always talk about how it's a good strategy to use a first baseman at your utility spot usually, because first base has the best hitters. You're going to get the most power there. And I think the Pujols and Crone, despite what appears to be a tough matchup, and I was wrong on this yesterday, I looked at taking hitters against Scott Kazmir, so hopefully it works out better than I got a couple singles, but I was expecting home runs. Hopefully it works out better than yesterday.
All right. Yeah, I like the Pujols call a lot. Rizzo I don't like necessarily as a home run pick, but that's a bit of a bold play, but still I think he may be able to collect a few hits. Although I will say that there's not much to choose from as far as your home run guys today. Other than Rizzo, I like Joe Mauer. I'm not targeting a whole lot of Twins today. But, he's hitting 295 against righties. Vogelsong's not great against lefties, giving up a 296 average. So, and he's a lower tier option. So I think Mauer's a solid play over there. And then moving over to second base, one of my favorite plays of the day probably is Howie Kendrick. He's hitting 333 in May. He's been hot. He's a guy who hits righties well, 317 against righties, and he's absolutely crushed Shields in his career, 13 for 23, does own a home run against him. So That's one of the top plays for me. I'm definitely going to be spending on Howie Kendrick today. Jeff, what do you think?
I love Kendrick as well. I think that's a good play. But Brian Dozier, I think, is the best second baseman available in this slate. Better than Robbie Cano, better than Kendrick. So I think that would be the direction I go. I don't believe in Vogelsong as much as Dave does. Again, I always talk about weather. Weather's good. Wind is blowing out a little bit. Dozier is a perfect combination of power and speed. And again, as Dave's talked about, we're going to have to go for the best options at quite a few positions today since we're saving a bit on pitching. And especially if you get a guy like C.J. Cron in your lineup who's 4,300, that frees up even more. So Brian Dozier is going to be the way I go. But I do not mind the Howie Kendrick pick at all either.
Dave, what do you think at second base?
I love Dozier. I mean, not necessarily tonight, but the more you watch this guy play, he might be the best second baseman in all of baseball going right now. Man, the guy, the guy hits with power. First pitch of the game last night, he bangs one off the left field fence, but I like Vogelsong tonight, so tonight's not going to be one of the nights that I go with him. I'll tell you another second baseman that I think is underrated, and maybe just because I haven't been paying close enough attention, is Altuve of Houston. I think he's clearly Houston's best offensive player. I talked about the matchup tonight against Mauer. I think it's the worst pitcher going tonight, Seattle's pitcher. So I'm going to try to get a couple of Houston's guys in there, and Altuve is definitely going to be one of them.
That's a good point. Altuve has been like the one bright spot in that Houston offense in the last, week or two. Pretty much that whole offense is batting like 180, but he's batting 500 or something. It's shocking, and he's very sneaky. You talk about how maybe you just overlook him. I think a lot of people are overlooking Jose Altuve, especially with his price being at 8,000. You just kind of like scan right past him because he's not one of those big name guys, right? But I like that. That's a sneaky pick.
I've been using him a lot. Actually, I used him in my utility spot the other day, and he hit a home run. He's a guy that I like to use when there's a lefty on the mound because he absolutely dominates left-handed pitching. So against a righty, I'm not sure I'm going to pay up his price tonight. But like you said, it's not no ideal matchup, so it's a good call. And he always has the benefit of being able to run a bit better against righties. So moving over to third, Jeff, I'll let you kick this off. So because I'm just stealing your pick from yesterday. So who do you like at third?
Yeah, it's the same guy, Pablo Sandoval, going against Minnesota. I think that's the way to go. He's been on fire. He jacked another home run last night. Like I said, wind's blowing out, weather's good. There's not a lot of options at third. Third is probably the ugliest position, I think, so I'm curious to hear who you and Dave have as other recommendations, but when you look through it, it's pretty much only Pablo for me.
Yeah, the other guy I listed was Todd Frazier, but I wouldn't seriously consider him when I feel like Pablo's a better option and cheaper. Yeah, like you said, 3 home runs in 5 games. He's on fire, hitting from the left side today, so that's always something you want out of him. I don't see any other way to go at third base today. Dave, what about you?
Yeah, well, I'm make it 3 in a row here, and I agree with everything you guys said. I like Frazier as a second choice, but a distant second choice. I can't imagine going any other direction than Sandoval tonight.
Again, this was a case where I love him, but I loved him even more against Nolasco. He's got outstanding career numbers against Nolasco. Nolasco was scratched from the start today, or I guess had his start pushed back, I should say. But it's still a great matchup. And then at shortstop, Dave, what are you thinking at short?
Well, I think there are some good choices at shortstop tonight. I think I consider Desmond as my home run pick of the day. He's got there's very few, like you mentioned, Joe, very few options tonight. Good options, I would say, in my mind, for home run selections. He is a rare guy who actually has some power and is playing tonight. I'll tell you, a guy I slipped into some of my lineups last night when I saw he was playing. I'm curious to see if he's playing again tonight because I like the matchup. Is Bloomquist of the Padres? He came through last night for me, and I like his matchup tonight. I think that he's a good. I've always thought he was a good hitter, a guy who hits left-handers well, and like I said, he came through with a big home run for me last night. So I'm going to consider that again tonight.
Jeff, what are you thinking at shortstop?
Well, what about the other guy you recommended that I thought did really well? A guy I had in my lineups, Eduardo Escobar, Minnesota, right? You talked about how he's essentially free yesterday, and he's pretty much free today. He knocked a double off of the wall that almost got out of the park last night. Got on base a couple times via the walk also. Again, I know you're starting Vogelsong, so maybe that's the reason why you don't want to start Escobar. But when you're taking a super cheap guy like that against one of your starting pitchers, it's not as big of a blow, because you're not expecting as much. And I don't know. I like Eduardo Escobar. I used him yesterday. I don't see a reason why not to use him again today.
Yeah, I in fact, I was watching that game last night, and he batted 4 times. He walked twice. He got a double. They got him out 1 time. And you look at his point total after the game, he had 4 points. I thought, man, he had a lot better game than just scoring 4 points, because he didn't drive anything in. He never scored any runs. So, but I do like that choice. But like I said, I don't like going against my pitcher or the guy I consider to be the best pitcher going tonight. So I'm going to stay away from Twins tonight.
Maybe they move him up in the lineup, though, after the night he had last night, and he can actually get some run production in, either be on base while someone else is knocking him in, or, knock someone else in. But, yeah, it'll be interesting to see where he's hitting in the lineup.
Yeah. In the Fanmouth game, runs are very important, RBIs and runs scored.
Absolutely.
That's how you get a lot of points. The other guy I would add on the other side in that game is Brandon Crawford, trying to get some lefties in against Deduno. The Giants don't have a ton, so I'm going to get him in where I can. Obviously, Dave would tell me Crawford hasn't been great against righties this year, but Jeff would tell me he's hitting 50 points below his career average against righties, so he's due for some progression. So he probably will start improving on that number a bit.
Well, so are you siding with Jeff or are you siding with Dave?
I'm siding with Jeff on this one. But
that's rare. Come on, that's rare.
Yeah. And then in the outfield, Dave, sounds to me like you've got some good stuff in the outfield. Why don't you lead us off?
I'm not sure I would go there. I have money to spend. I'd like nothing better tonight than to play Stanton and Bautista and Trout. Unfortunately, only one of those 3 guys is playing. And I don't like that matchup as much as Jeff does, but I'm still going to play Trout. You can't go wrong playing him. The other high price options I think that I like out there. One is Pagan of the Giants. He had a nice night last night, a double and a triple. He's back. He was injured a little last week, but he's back, and he's the table setter for the Giants. I think he's a good choice tonight. His price has gone up, but he's a leadoff guy who has extra base power, steals bases, does a lot of good things. Another guy, I haven't mentioned this game at all, but the St. Louis-Cincinnati game with 2 lefties pitching, I think the best right-handed hitting option in that game is Alan Craig. Hits left-handers very well. They're playing in a pitcher's park. I'm not digging very deeply into that game, but he would be the one guy I would play in that game. But there's also a lot of lower-priced options. I mentioned wanting, Houston. Left-handed hitters against Seattle tonight, against Mauer, who I think is the worst pitcher. Well, Dexter Fowler is one of these guys. I think he's got a chance to score some runs tonight, maybe steal some bases in a very good matchup. And another matchup that I like is San Diego. Wood has been terrible on the road for the Cubs. I'm looking for some San Diego right-handed batters to play tonight. Again, very slim pickings there. I think Maben. It probably stands out among their right-handed hitters with some potential, so I'll consider him at a low price as well. But sorry, Joe, to disappoint there, but I'm not crazy about a whole lot of outfielders.
All right, maybe Jeff is. Jeff, what do you think?
No, I'm kind of with Dave. Like, I have all this money left over for my outfield, and there's just no one to spend it on. I mean, it starts with Mike Trout. I do like that. Because I talked about James Shields a little bit, but he's essentially a reverse splits pitcher, not too crazy extreme or anything, but his WOBA against versus righties is like middle of the pack. It's 314. It's not really good. It's not really bad. It's just whatever. So taking guys like Pujols and Cron and and Trout here and Kendrick, it's not a bad way to go. So Trout, you immediately slot in there for me. But then I'm running into guys like McCutchen, who is going against Strasburg, and it's like, your options are to spend big on the guys who have all the skills but the poor matchups, or to spend lower on the guys who have the better matchups but aren't as skilled. So I'm going with skill. I'm going with McCutchen against Strasburg. Kind of hoping that he can maybe get on base, get a steal or something. Although it's a little easier to steal off Strasburg, not so much off of his catchers. He's got good catchers throwing for him. So I like that. And on the other side of it, I like Denard Span because Garrett Cole actually is not very good at holding runners on. So I think it would be good to use Span there against Garrett Cole. Again, you have to do stuff like this with such a short slate. Normally, I would not take a hitter against one of my pitchers, but I'm going to take Denard Span here and hope for a steal, and then I don't know if I'm going to be hoping that he scores a run or not, but it's going to be one of those weird things where it's like, I don't know what I want to happen here. But yeah, that's kind of the few guys that I'm looking at.
All right, yeah, I mean, just throw a couple more guys out there in the high price if you guys have money to spend. Obviously, Dave, you already mentioned Pagan. I think that's a great play. He's much better from the left side, hitting 311. He hits 358 at home, so I think he's a very solid play tonight. And then one guy no one mentioned is Alex Gordon, who was off to a slow start to the year, but is starting to heat up. Last 5 games, he's got 7 hits, including 2 homers. He hits better against righties, hits better on the road. So I think he's a solid play tonight if you're looking for somebody to spend money on as well. All right.
I haven't heard any home run selections, especially from we talked earlier about Jeff being the pitching king. Joe is now the home run king. What, like 5 homers in the last 6 games or something?
I think yeah, most of it has been this week. I had Stanton hit a couple. Moss last week hit a couple for me. And then I had back-to-backs one night. So yeah, I was off to a slow start, but I've been catching up tonight. Gosh, I just don't know. Like I said, it's not. Well, no, it's not like a night where you have.
There's rumors out there that you're not going to give your home runs on this show anymore. You're going to start selling them.
Yeah, exactly.
You're doing nothing to diffuse that rumor, right?
Actually, I still hadn't made up my mind. I guess I'm going to go probably Pujols tonight. But not with a lot of confidence. Like I said, there's no Bautistas, there's no Stantons going, there's no matchup that really jumps out at me. So that's just sort of, I guess it's Pujols. How about you, Jeff?
I think Mesoraco is going to be the way I go.
Mesoraco. A couple bold calls over there. I'm taking the easy way out, and these guys are going for style points. So we'll see how that works out.
It's kind of like that diver that's way behind going into the last dive. You got to do the quadruple flip to try to catch up.
The triple Indy.
And all you have to do is the swan dive to win the championship. So it kind of all makes sense.
All right. I figured out if I just pick who you pick every day, then I'll stay ahead of you, right? All right, that wraps it up. Last thing we're going to do is give you a final word on how we think you should build your lineup. I'll go ahead and kick it off. Like I said, I think Cole and Cingrani is the way to go today. It's a combination that provides you some upside, I think not too much risk, and plenty of money still to build your offense. I don't see a need really to start Strasburg. Yeah, there's a chance he has one of his outstanding 12 strikeout games, but that would be an outlying performance. It's not something I would really count on. And when you're paying $19,000, to roll the dice on a big game, I don't think that's a great strategy. Big plays for me, Howie Kendrick, I think, is a top play. Pablo Sandoval, I think, is a top play. And then spend the money, and then a few other infielders that I think you can fill in. I think Mauer's a good fill-in. Brandon Crawford, and then we talked about spending money on the outfield. I'm probably going to go Gordon, Trout, Pagan, and go big in the outfield. Dave, last word.
Well, this is a recipe for disaster, but let's have a little fun tonight. Because there is a small slate, maybe we'll take a chance and do something that you don't usually do when you play this game. I think 4 four matchups, four teams stand out tonight offensively, given the pitching matchups. Four teams that you would very rarely consider on a normal night. But Houston and Seattle, with Oberholzer and Mauer facing each other, two very, below average pitchers. The Cubs and San Diego, Wood against Buckner, the minor leaguer. Wood's a decent pitcher, but not on the road. He's terrible. So these are four poor offensive teams with limited options, but it's, to me, I'd rather take a shot against a bad pitcher than to try to force something against a good pitcher at usually at a higher price as well. So I'm going to be rolling the dice tonight with my Astros and Mariners and Cubs and Padres. And if you're looking for me in the standings, and if you're in the same league as me, you're probably going to look at the bottom. But I'm going to take a chance. We're all learning how to play this game, I'll roll the dice. I'm going to certainly go with Vogelsong as one of my pitchers tonight. I'm going to consider Shoemaker as my second pitcher as well. He's actually pitched decently in his starts and faces a weak Kansas City offense tonight. That's going to save me a lot of money for my hitters. Unfortunately, I don't really see who to spend them on. So I'm gonna have extra change, put it in my pocket. Maybe they'll let me put it toward tomorrow's lineup.
I feel like Dave should be like be in the government or something, because he's going to have money left over at the end of the year. So, yeah, good stuff. I actually do like the Cubs. I mean, that's a good strategy. Yeah, you do have some weak hitting teams, but they're facing weak pitchers, and they'll have a chance to get it going. I'm with you on the Cubs as well. Jeff, last word.
I actually don't mind Travis Wood either. San Diego put, I think, their highest run total of the year up last night, but before that, I had rattled off the numbers of how poorly they were doing. It's pretty bad, and of course, Petco is a pitcher's park, so Wood seems like a pretty good way to go, actually, if you want to save some money. And I don't mind Ryan Vogelsong either, a guy that Dave likes, but I think the way to go is, like Joe said, go with Cingrani and Cole, and that leaves you kind of the perfect amount to play with as far as getting all the hitters that you need in. If you set all your hitters first and get exactly all the guys that you want in there, you're probably going to have exactly the amount left over for Cingrani and Cole, or at least I did. And they're actually two of the better options today. So I think basically you can figure out your hitters and play around with that. We kind of recommended that yesterday or a couple days ago, is get your hitters figured out first and then see what you have left over for pitching and, decide, okay, do I need to go really cheap with the Vogelsong and Travis Wood, or can I spend a little more on Cingrani and Cole? But in reality, you're not going to need to spend money on the Steven Strasburgs and James Shields because they're not worth it. So, and probably when you get your lineup all filled out, they're going to be priced out anyway. So that's what I recommend doing.
All right, good stuff there from Jeff. I think we agree on that a bit. There's no need to really spend a ton of money tonight at pitchers. That wraps us up for today. Thank you guys for joining us. You can see our full rankings at blog.fanmouth.com. Follow us on Twitter at PlayFanmouth. We will be back next week. Have a good Memorial Day.